The desert shimmered beneath an unforgiving sun, a sea of gold and silence stretching to the horizon. Heat bent the air, twisting distant shapes into illusions. Captain Elena Vega stood at the edge of the observation ridge, one hand shielding her eyes from the glare, the other resting on her belt. She had been told the Galactic Union's delegation would arrive precisely at 0900, and when their ship finally cut through the sky, it did so like a blade of glass, perfect and cold. A ripple of displaced air swept across the dunes as the vessel descended, its surface reflecting the wasteland below as though mocking its barrenness. Vega squared her shoulders. Humanity's fate, at least in the Union's eyes, was about to be measured in a single display of skill. The hatch opened with a hiss, releasing a burst of sterile air and the scent of metal. The Galactic Scouts emerged one by one, moving in synchronized formation. They were tall, lean, and deliberate, each step measured, every gesture exact. Their armor shifted color to match the sand, the adaptive plating and extension of their pride. Vega noted their precision with a mix of admiration and irritation. To them, perfection wasn't a goal, it was a birthright. The lead scout approached her, a being of translucent crystal and dark alloy, eyes glowing faintly with internal light. "Captain Vega," he said in a tone that was both polite and dismissive. "This is your proving ground?" "It is," Vega replied evenly. "Welcome to the Mojave Range. You'll find it unpredictable." He tilted his head, expression unreadable. "Unpredictable. An inefficient environment for testing accuracy." "That's the point," she said. Behind him, several scouts exchanged what might have been laughter. Their translator bands rendered the sound melodic, but the condescension needed no translation. They had come to evaluate Earth's worthiness for the Union's defense compact. A formality, or so they believed. Earth's weapons were relics in their eyes, crude toys of combustion and lead. The scouts were legends in the galaxy's military hierarchy, explorers, tacticians, and marksmen whose rifles used light and quantum resonance to strike targets light years away. Humanity's inclusion in their alliance depended on this demonstration, and they expected to be amused. Vega refused to oblige. She gestured toward the dunes. "You wanted to see how we fight," she said. "You'll see." A faint hum of interest passed through the group. The lead scout followed her gaze to where the desert seemed empty, save for heat ripples. "Your marksman is concealed?" She smiled. "If you can't see him, he's doing his job." 3 kilometers away, Staff Sergeant Cole Marlowe lay flat against the earth. His ghillie suit blended seamlessly into the sand, the fibers stained and tangled from weeks of wear. The world around him was soundless except for the slow rhythm of his breathing and the distant whisper of wind shifting the dunes. Through his scope, he saw the delegation, bright, alien, impossibly advanced, and felt the familiar steadiness settle over him. Nerves were for men who doubted themselves. Cole didn't doubt. He adjusted the rifle's elevation by a fraction, then let his finger rest lightly on the trigger guard. Vega's voice came through the communicator in his ear, crisp and calm. "Target will deploy in 60 seconds. Acknowledge." "Copy," Cole murmured, his voice low. At the ridge, the lead scout gestured to his subordinates. "We will provide the target," he said. "Observe." One of them stepped forward and activated a small, disc-shaped device. It rose from his palm, humming softly, before launching into the air with sudden, violent speed. The drone accelerated, slicing through the atmosphere in a blur, its adaptive field flickering as it dodged invisible waypoints. "This unit simulates unpredictable motion," the scout explained. "Your shooter will attempt to engage it." "Engage it," Vega repeated dryly. "Right." The drone darted across the sky, weaving patterns too complex for the human eye to track. The scouts watched her expectantly, amused, certain that no primitive weapon could touch their machine. Vega said nothing. Her focus remained on the distant horizon, where she knew Cole was waiting. The seconds stretched thin. The air shimmered harder, as if holding its breath. The alien delegation grew restless. "Has your sniper lost visual?" one of them asked. Vega didn't answer immediately. He's calculating, she said finally. The lead scout's tone sharpened. Without assistance? Without machines, Vega said. He doesn't need them. In the dunes, Cole inhaled deeply, letting his heartbeat slow. He could feel the crosswind shifting, faint and inconsistent. The target's movement wasn't random. It followed an arc shaped by pattern recognition software. He'd studied enough of their flight data to sense the rhythm buried beneath the chaos. The wind tugged at his sleeve. He waited, patient as stone. The radio crackled again. Vega's voice came through, quieter now. "Make it count, Cole." He didn't reply. He didn't need to. The world narrowed to a single line, the space between sight and instinct. He eased the trigger back. The rifle barked once, the sound sharp and small against the vastness. A puff of dust rose near his muzzle. At the ridge, one of the scouts laughed softly. A miss. Predictable. But then, above them, the drone faltered mid-flight. It spun once, a shimmer of static distorting its field, and then exploded into fragments that scattered like glass under the desert sun. The laughter died instantly. Vega's expression remained composed, though her eyes gleamed. "You were saying?" The lead scout stared at the fading debris, processing the impossibility. His armor flickered faintly, the light beneath its shifting color. "That cannot be coincidence," he said quietly. "Not coincidence," Vega said. "Skill." Far across the sand, Cole ejected the spent casing, marking it with a small strip of tape before pocketing it. Through his scope, he could see the distant figures frozen in disbelief. He exhaled slowly, feeling the familiar calm return. Vega turned to the delegation. "Would you like to see it again?" The lead scout said nothing. The desert wind rose, swirling around them like a whisper. In that moment, even the galaxy's most advanced soldiers could not find words to describe what they had just witnessed. Humanity, small and imperfect, had just rewritten their understanding of precision. Vega allowed herself one final glance at the horizon. "It doesn't miss," she said softly, and the desert swallowed the sound. The silence after the explosion felt heavier than the desert air. Dust drifted upward, catching the sunlight in faint golden ribbons as it settled back to the ground. The alien spectators stood frozen, their reflective eyes fixed on the fading shimmer of the destroyed drone. The data feeds in their helmets flickered, unable to reconcile the readings. A single projectile, unaided by guidance systems, had struck a moving target that no algorithm predicted could be hit. Captain Vega kept her stance relaxed, arms folded behind her back, as the lead scout stepped forward. His expression was unreadable, but the tremor in his voice betrayed him. "That cannot be accurate. There must be an error in your simulation feed." "It wasn't a simulation," Vega replied evenly. "You're standing on real ground." And that, she pointed toward the distant dunes, was a real shot. The alien's crystalline head tilted slightly, lenses focusing and refocusing. One round? No automated correction, no drone synchronization. Just a man, a rifle, and gravity, she said. He turned toward his subordinates. "Replay the telemetry." They obeyed instantly. A holographic feed materialized, reconstructing the moment in slow motion. The drone weaving through the air, the faint puff of sand from Cole's position, the arc of the bullet as it sliced through wind currents, striking true. The alien's optical sensors zoomed in on the data point. There it was, unavoidable, undeniable. Vega allowed herself a small breath of satisfaction. For years, Earth had been treated as the technological relic of the galaxy, a species that survived more by stubbornness than skill. Yet now, in this moment, one human had forced the most advanced scouts in the Union to question everything they believed about precision. Cole lay prone still, his cheek pressed against the rifle's stock, watching through the scope as the fragments of the drone drifted down. The wind whispered over the dunes, tugging at the loose threads of his ghillie suit. He could see the faint shimmer of the alien landing craft in the distance, a mirage of light and arrogance. His breathing slowed, each inhale steady, each exhale deliberate. He hadn't felt triumph when the target shattered, only quiet confirmation. He'd known the moment his finger brushed the trigger that the shot was true. His radio crackled softly. "Beautiful work." Vega's voice came through. "Target neutralized," Cole replied. His tone was calm, almost detached, as if reporting weather conditions. "Hold position," she said. "They're recalibrating their pride." A dry smile tugged at his mouth. "Copy that." At the landing zone, the scouts began arguing among themselves. Their instruments had recorded every parameter: the wind speed, barometric pressure, and trajectory, but none of it explained how a human could adapt in milliseconds to factors even their predictive algorithms couldn't map. They debated whether it was chance, instinct, or an evolutionary quirk. Finally, the lead scout turned to Vega again. "Repeat the test. We require verification." Vega lifted an eyebrow. "You think you got lucky?" "I think your species misunderstands probability." Her smile was thin. "You misunderstand persistence." She tapped her communicator. "Cole, they want an encore." "Different target?" he asked. "Moving faster this time." "Good," he said, chambering another round. The aliens deployed a second drone, larger and sleeker, glowing faintly blue under its shielding field. It rose high into the air, humming like a living thing, before vanishing into the brightness. Cole tracked it by sound at first, then by instinct. The wind had shifted since the last shot, stronger, swirling unpredictably through the valleys between dunes. He adjusted the rifle's bipod slightly, feeling the vibration of the earth beneath his elbow. Through his scope, the world narrowed again. He no longer saw the aliens, the audience, or even the desert, only motion, distance, and time. He counted silently, syncing the rhythm of his heartbeat to the drone's evasive pattern. His mind calculated without numbers. Every shot he had ever taken, every failure, every near miss had built to this quiet certainty. The drone executed a high-speed spiral, zigzagging between altitude bands. The aliens murmured, confident the human couldn't follow such erratic motion. Cole inhaled slowly, then held it. The wind shifted again, this time in his favor. He felt it rather than saw it. The invisible pause before balance. He pressed the trigger. The recoil was soft, almost polite. A second puff of dust rose, the sound again delayed by distance. Vega didn't need to look up. She could tell from the stillness in the air. The drone continued for 2 heartbeats longer before its shield flickered and failed. A faint pop echoed across the desert, followed by the thin scream of disintegrating metal. The lead scout's composure broke. "Impossible." He gestured wildly at his technicians. "Check for magnetic interference, cloaked assistance, quantum bias." Vega tilted her head. "Or maybe," she said softly, "you're just not as good as you thought." He whirled on her, the crystal along his forehead pulsing with color. "Do you think this proves superiority? You rely on chaos. You worship unpredictability." "Maybe that's the difference," Vega said. "You build perfection to eliminate uncertainty. We train to live inside it." For a moment, the only sound was the wind. Then one of the younger scouts, a smaller, copper-skinned creature with eyes like molten glass, spoke up hesitantly. The human did not correct mid-flight. He predicted the anomaly before it existed. The lead scout stared at him, then turned his gaze back toward the dunes. "Retrieve your marksman," he said finally. Vega spoke in her radio. "You're clear, Cole." He rose from the sand slowly, joints stiff, the rifle cradled in his hands. As he walked toward them, the mirage seemed to dissolve, revealing him fully for the first time. A man covered in dust, his uniform sun-bleached, his face lined and calm. The aliens watched in silence, as though observing a creature that should not exist. When he reached Vega's side, she met his eyes. "You've made friends," she murmured. Cole glanced at the group, expression unreadable. "Didn't come here to make friends." The lead scout studied him, then inclined his head slightly. "Your accuracy is commendable, but even a blind creature can stumble upon truth." Cole adjusted his rifle strap. "Maybe," he said quietly, "but it takes sight to know where you're walking." The alien said nothing more. He turned away, his subordinates following in uneasy silence. Vega watched them retreat toward their ship, the desert wind carrying away their murmured debates. The sun was lower now, casting long shadows across the dunes. Cole looked out toward the horizon, his expression thoughtful. "They're not done," he said. "No," Vega agreed. "But they're listening now." He nodded once, tightening the strap across his shoulder. "Then it's a start." As the alien engines ignited, the sound rolled like thunder over the sands. Vega glanced at Cole, at the quiet certainty in his eyes, and felt something shift, not just in the air, but in the way the galaxy would soon look at Earth. The debriefing chamber aboard the Galactic Union vessel shimmered with sterile light, its walls alive with shifting data streams. Rows of alien officers sat in silence, their attention fixed on the suspended hologram of a single bullet rotating in midair. Every micron of its surface had been analyzed, every vibration dissected, yet the conclusion remained the same. It was nothing extraordinary. No smart core, no embedded nanotech, no guidance system. Just brass, lead, and human intent. Captain Vega stood beside the projection, arms clasped behind her back, watching the Union's top minds wrestle with something they could not measure. The lead scout paced before the assembly, his crystalline armor reflecting the pale light. "The trajectory defies probability," he said, his voice taut with restrained disbelief. "No predictive algorithm can account for atmospheric distortion with that degree of precision. Your soldier acted without computational support, yet his impact accuracy was absolute." Vega's tone was calm, almost conversational. He didn't need computation. He had experience. "Experience," the alien repeated, as though tasting a foreign word. "You mean repetition? Muscle memory?" She shook her head. "I mean comprehension. He doesn't just see numbers or wind speed. He feels them. It's not data to him. It's instinct born from imperfection." A low murmur rippled through the audience. The Union prized precision above all else. Their entire civilization revolved around predictability. Uncertainty was a flaw to be corrected, not embraced. The notion that a sentient being could sense probability instead of calculating it challenged their very identity. Cole Marlowe stood at the edge of the chamber, uncomfortable in the spotless environment. He had been summoned here against his will, told that the Union Council demanded to study the anomaly. He preferred the desert, quiet, real, unfiltered. The hum of alien machinery set his teeth on edge. Vega noticed his unease and stepped closer. "They want to understand what you did," she murmured. "Try to take their arrogance personally." He smirked faintly. "Arrogance is easier to ignore than disbelief." The lead scout turned his crystalline gaze toward him. "Sergeant Marlowe, do you comprehend that your actions have disrupted centuries of ballistic theory? Your accuracy invalidates hundreds of predictive systems across 12 worlds." Cole looked unimpressed. "I just took the shot that needed taking." "That is insufficient," the scout said sharply. "There must be more." Cole met his stare. "There's always more. You just can't measure it." A flicker of irritation rippled through the chamber. Vega could sense the tension climbing like static, but she didn't intervene. She wanted them to hear it, the unvarnished truth from a man who lived by it. Cole's voice stayed low but carried weight. "You depend on your machines to tell you the world's shape. We depend on our senses. You want to remove error. We learn from it. You want to know everything before you act. We act to find out." For a long moment, no one spoke. The hologram of the bullet rotated slowly between them, its simplicity an accusation. Finally, one of the younger officers, a scholar rather than a soldier, spoke with careful reverence. "You trusted the unknown and struck true. Perhaps that is what separates your kind." Vega nodded once. "That's what makes us dangerous. And useful." The lead scout's tone softened, though the edge of disbelief lingered. "Perhaps that is why your world has survived despite its primitiveness." He turned to the assembly. "Let the record show Earth's admission to the Union is approved, not for technological parity, but for unique strategic potential." A wave of murmurs followed, some approving, others resentful. Vega exhaled quietly, the faintest relief crossing her features. It was done. Humanity would no longer stand outside the galactic threshold, underestimated and dismissed. They had earned acknowledgement not through power, but through proof of mastery. Cole seemed unaffected by the announcement. He only asked, "That mean we're equals now?" The alien regarded him with something close to respect. "It means you are understood. Equality is earned through understanding." Cole gave a small, dry laugh. "Guess we'll keep working on that." The chamber dispersed slowly. As the aliens filed out, several paused near Cole, offering brief nods. A gesture of respect, awkward but sincere. Vega watched, a quiet pride settling in her chest. The soldier who preferred silence had just spoken louder than any diplomat could. Later, as the ship descended toward the desert, Vega and Cole stood by the viewport. The sands below glowed orange under the setting sun, the same place where it had all begun. The moment felt heavier now, as though the world itself understood it had shifted. Vega broke the silence. "They'll tell this story for centuries." "You know that?" Cole shrugged. "They'll forget my name soon enough." "Maybe," she said, "but not what you represented." He didn't answer. His gaze stayed fixed on the endless dunes, eyes tracing the subtle movements of the wind. The planet looked small from this height, fragile even, but to him it was home, a place that demanded skill, patience, and humility. The things the galaxy had forgotten. When they landed, the desert greeted them with its familiar silence. Cole stepped out first, boots crunching softly on the sand. The air felt different now, as though the wind itself carried memory. He knelt and pressed a gloved hand into the earth, feeling the heat still stored beneath the surface. Vega watched him for a moment before speaking. "You changed something out there, you know? Not just for them, for us." He straightened, slinging his rifle over his shoulder. "Change doesn't mean peace. They'll come back." "I know," she said. "But next time, they'll come with respect." He smiled faintly. "Respect's just the beginning." The sun was low on the horizon, bleeding color across the dunes. Vega turned to leave, but Cole lingered, looking out over the land that had once tested him and now vindicated him. He reached into a pouch and pulled out a single spent casing, the one he'd fired that morning. With a marker, he scrawled 3 words on the side, "Eyes on target," then placed it gently on a flat rock. As he walked away, the wind began to rise, scattering grains of sand over the casing until it was half buried, its message hidden but not lost. Somewhere above, the alien vessel ascended toward the stars, carrying the story of a single bullet that had changed how the galaxy saw humanity. Cole didn't watch it go. He already knew the truth it carried. For all their technology, all their arrogance, they'd finally seen what every soldier on Earth already knew. The target isn't always out there in the distance. Sometimes it's the line you refuse to cross, the doubt you refuse to let win. He adjusted his cap against the wind, glanced once more toward the horizon, and started walking. The desert stretched ahead, wide and endless, but his steps were steady, unhurried. The sun dipped lower, painting his silhouette across the dunes, small, solitary, and indomitable. The kind of figure the stars would remember whether they wanted to or not.